3 o'clock on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show. Along with Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. A lot to get to on today's program as we continue following the latest around the Gamecock baseball search. I'd love to come on the air this afternoon and tell you that there's more to report. Got a few tidbits here and there about what could be happening, but nothing definitive as of yet. I wonder at what point the fan base begins to get a little itchy, a little antsy when it comes to a decision if it hasn't been made by X number of days. You know, last time around, 7 years ago, the primary reason, only reason, that it took as long as it did is because South Carolina was in pursuit of Florida's Kevin O'Sullivan. And Kevin O'Sullivan ended up playing for and winning the national championship. And it just kind of kept on going there for a while. This time around, I as John Whittle told us yesterday, the strongest belief is that every main candidate is done for the season. Take that as you will. Some of you may go, well, that's not good. I want somebody who's still going. And I hear you. I think those that would be like, for instance, let me give you an example. I'll just go ahead and say this. I don't think this man is a candidate, and I'll tell you why. But I looked up Nick Mingione's numbers. He's the Kentucky head coach. He's doing a fine job. Last season, after Kentucky made a super regional, Mitch Barnhart gave him a new contract. He's actually only this past season, he's making what Coach Kingston was making, around $700,000. But there are big escalators and big bonuses in his contract. There is also a massive buyout for Nick Mingione. And basically, it's the same on both sides, Elijah. If Kentucky, were to fire Nick, they would owe him what's left. And if he leaves, he owes them what he's still owed, prorated. So it's a lot of money because it's a long deal, and it will ultimately see his salary escalate to $1 million. By the way, of the 14 head coaches in the Southeastern Conference this season, 9 of them make more than $1 million, which is one of the reasons that I said the other day when somebody asked me, what do you think the salary kind of range is for Carolina? And I said, well, it better be a seven-figure hire. And listen, throwing money at something isn't the end-all, be-all. We all know that. Can you find a way to be – listen, the negative folks out there would say it's cheap. People that want to look at it from a little more positive standpoint, I don't know, might say, what, thrifty?
Are you asking for a positive spin on not wanting to spend money on something that you desire?
Lucky.
Bargain binning?
Yeah, but over half the league, guys are making $1 million. Again, what neighborhood do you want to live in and play in? Yeah, that's one of the questions that's being asked right now. Again, do you have to pay somebody $1 million? Let's take Cliff Godwin as an example at East Carolina. He makes $600,000 right now. This past season, $600,000. You could give him a $250,000 raise, which would be a really nice raise, and you still got some room before you get to the seven-figure number. So would you say that that's a win-win for everybody? Or is it, for what we know about Cliff, let's hypothetically put him at the top of the list for now. We know, as Ryan McGee echoed, as John Whittle has said, as David Cloninger has said, as others have said of Cliff Godwin, he is an ECU guy through and through. Born and raised, literally born and raised in the Greenville area. Played at East Carolina, assistant at East Carolina, head coach at East Carolina, 2 degrees from East Carolina. Family raised in Greenville, North Carolina. The only job that he ever really was interested in and nearly got was Louisiana State a couple of years ago. And one of the things I heard, actually I've had 2 different people tell me this in different kind of ways. Perhaps one of the main reasons he didn't ultimately get that job and it went to Jay Johnson is that Cliff was basically asked, how many people can you bring with you, be it assistant coaches or some of your top talent, to help us kind of get this thing going? And he said, hey, in so many words, I was told this. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come and I'm going to be your coach, but I don't want to leave them in the lurch. That's home to me. That place means a lot to me. And then ultimately, they decided, okay, well, and then Jay Johnson said, I'll raid the Arizona roster. I don't give a crap.
I'll bring the whole team.
And I think he brought 6 or 8 dudes with him and one of his assistants, and look, 2 years later, LSU won a national title. Take it as you will. But, do you have to pay somebody a bunch of money? I don't know. But when over half your league makes $1 million, that's the neighborhood you play in. That's the market you're shopping in.
Yep.
And, we talked about this yesterday. A lot of the chatter around a guy like Monty Lee isn't really – some of it is about Monty's resume. But I gather that the bulk of it really is more symbolic. And we'll repeat that again today a little bit here and there. But I think a lot of it is say this fan base is going to say to Ray Tanner, we wanted somebody like you this time around, and you didn't give us that. It's not that Monty can't coach. Monty's a good coach. And again, Monty's a great dude. So that's why I've said, from my point of view, and I'm not here to say up or down about that. This is what you and I do for a living when we interact with our audience in whatever capacity, be it, on air, on Twitter, on the text line. That's what when I read the lines and between them, that's what I get. That it would be a symbolic hire and not a good symbol for where things are relative to where everybody says they want this program to be.
From a financial standpoint, absolutely, and from a program prestige standpoint. Me and you, we talked about this before the show. Let's go ahead and put this hypothetical out there where we're a week removed from this. There are reports of maybe offers being put out. And that's kind of the stage we're in right now. Offers being given, decisions being made. I talked to a college baseball coach today, a former Division I coach, who said, it takes a few days once you get the offer because you got to talk to your family. You got to make a really important decision. Sometimes it's not an automatic yes. And the money's one thing, the buyout's one thing, but those can all be handled. But if we go through a week and a half, 2 weeks, and ultimately it does get to where it's announced that Monty Lee gets promoted to being head coach, it might tell you that some coaches might not even take the raise to come to South Carolina, or they might not take the risk to leave where they're at. So let's take, for example, you're someone like Coach Pollard at Duke, where you're at a place that you build, there's not as much pressure, and if the money's similar, then why would you want to take, the job? Or even if the money's more, if you value the job security you have, the closeness you have to getting to Omaha, if you think you can get to Omaha at Duke, Coach Godwin clearly thinks he can get to Omaha at ECU, and he's gotten close enough to where that's not some type of hyperbolic take in his mind. That's a real thing.
4 supers, right?
4 supers. Yeah. And the one against Texas, they were dangerously close a couple of years ago. Yeah. I argue they should have actually got in. That was probably their best chance so far. But if you think you can still reach the goals that you want to as a college baseball coach, but you like where you're at right there, whether it be Duke, Wake, ECU, wherever, right? There's several places, Louisville in the case of Coach McDonald. I think from the fan base standpoint that there might be a sense of we ain't got it like we used to. The name South Carolina, the Gamecock program prestige might not be what it used to, and that's going to be a gut punch in itself. Yeah. That realization, and it, like you said, going back to this, because I don't want to sound like we're dumping on Monty, but if that eventually ends up happening and you end up elevating the guy that was on the staff of the head coach you fired after a couple weeks, given this program's history, given the fact that Ray is the one doing the hire, it might feel that way, that your program just isn't going to be what it used to be. And
then it's symbolic for a different reason, right? Or an additional reason.
Multiple reasons. Yeah. Financially, that you might have this, perception that you're not willing to.
Right.
And the perception that you can't.
Right.
And those are too bad for two separate reasons.
Yeah, and that could be a reality, and you certainly hope it's not. And I think that's why the faith being placed in Ray Tanner this time feels different. You know, there's no question, none, zero question, that one of the best and brightest baseball minds of his and any era is Ray Tanner. But there's a lot of fans, right or wrong, and this is opinion, and this is part of what we all deal in, think that Ray Tanner right now in hiring a baseball coach is 0 for 2.
Mm-hmm.
There's no dispute that Chad Holbrook was the right hire at the time, but it didn't work for a variety of reasons. There's some dispute, and that range is different for some, over Mark Kingston. But let me say again, there's no dispute on why Mark was let go. Mm-hmm. And so now here's Coach Tanner's third opportunity. But that's what I was saying yesterday, and I'm going to reiterate again today. Those that are ready for this change are also looking to Ray to go hire his equivalent. And that's much easier said than done.
Because there's only one Ray Tanner. I mean, we talk about him being the top 6, 7 coaches in the history of the game. He's in rarefied air.
Yeah, absolutely. There's Coach Dado from back in the day, and Coach Garrido certainly, and Coach Gustafson at Texas. You know, 2 Texas greats, and Augie, of course, won a title at Fullerton as well. What Coach Burtman did. You know, Ray's up there with the best of them, man. He truly is up there with the best of them. And you know, while you're not going to hire a direct Ray Tanner again, I get it. And you can't go clone him. I don't know if the biology folks over at Carolina can pull something like that off.
If it's that advanced, try it.
But who fits the bill? You know, who fits the bill of Ray Tanner 20 years ago? And I'll say this, too, one more time before we talk to Mitch Light of The Athletic. And we'll get Mitch's thoughts on this a little bit, and we're going to look ahead to the Supers with Mitch as well. He's been covering college baseball all season, been on with us a few times already. 20 years ago-ish, after Carolina had made its third straight run to Omaha but didn't win the championship, played for one of the titles. You know, and I'm condensing this down, but Ray Tanner came to his administration, and there was a changeover there from McGee to Hyman, but plans had begun to be formed for a new ballpark and for just the things, plural, that needed to be done. You know, go out ultimately and again, bring a guy like Chad Holbrook down from a fantastic program. Chad probably could have become the head coach at North Carolina when Coach Fox decided to leave. But Chad and Jen decided to come to Columbia. But that took money. And Chad's a hell of a recruiter. But it took the facility that Ray Tanner had dreamed of, and it was built. All those things get done, and you become the best baseball program in America, period. There was no argument. Those things can be rather fluid, but for a time, there is no question South Carolina was the best program in the country. Fans want Ray to find the guy and then be the AD guy to make that happen again. Easier said than done, but that's where this fan base is with baseball.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, like I mentioned, it's fluid. Like college sports are fluid. And when we talked about, the programs in the SEC that have passed you by, it didn't take long for that to happen.
No. And that's what Ryan McGee told us yesterday. Like there was,
blink of an eye.
Yeah, you and I were talking about it earlier. You asked me when Ray quit, was he the highest paid coach in the conference? And I was like, well, in the conference at that time, you had Ray Tanner, Paul Maneri, Dave Van Horn, Kevin O'Sullivan, and Tim Corbin. All were at the top of their game, and their programs were doing great. But Ray was certainly, and those 5 were also amongst the best paid, with Coach Garrido and a few others. Coach Leggett at Clemson was making a lot of money. Coach Fox at North Carolina was making a lot of money. But Ray was amongst the best paid, certainly. No question.
Yeah.
No question. Mitch Light of The Athletic on the other side. Alan Cole, Gamecock Scoop, will join us with what he's found out about where the search is throughout the course of the afternoon. Want to hear from you, 803-404-6100. It's the Thursday Postgame Show. 19 minutes past the hour on this Thursday. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. Let's jump right on the horn and talk to our buddy Mitch Light of The Athletic. Been covering college baseball all season long. There's so many things going on, Mitch, but am I hearing right? Dan Hurley is leaving Connecticut to become South Carolina's baseball coach. Is that the story today?
Close. He's actually becoming Vanderbilt's new hitting coach because Tim Corbin just actually, I was telling Elijah, Vanderbilt fired or relieved of his duties Mike Baxter, former major leaguer, one of Corbin's first players at Vanderbilt, had been the hitting coach since 2019. But if you been watching the SEC the last few years, Vanderbilt's hitting has not been very good. It's always difficult to gauge, is it the coach's fault, is it the players, all that stuff. But I think it was clear they needed a new voice there, but still surprising when a coach like Tim Corbin, who's extremely loyal, makes a change with one of his former players. Yeah,
and loyalty can only go so far if the results aren't there. And we've talked about that a bunch, and that's one of the things people are looking at when it comes to Ray Tanner's search is that Ray is a loyal guy and appreciates that reciprocation. So might that factor into it. Before we talk about the Supers this weekend, especially a guy like you who's, sees this from a different perspective covering the sport, a few hours away from us. What are you looking at with the Gamecock search? Not so much about candidates, although I want you to throw that in, but just how things are going and where the Gamecocks are perceived relative to the height of their powers a decade plus ago.
That's a great question, Jay. And I was thinking about that earlier because obviously a decade ago you would put South Carolina, I don't know, the best job in the SEC, but clearly in that very small tier. I think we're at the stage of college baseball now where almost every SEC job is in that upper tier. Now with NIL, basically every school's fully funded almost. And, I know every schools have different NIL packages and all that, but I think the right coach can win big at every SEC job. We're seeing Kentucky in the Supers shared the SEC title. We've seen we've seen Auburn jump up and go to the College World Series 2 times in the previous 4 years before this year. I don't think that takes away from the South Carolina job at all. It's still an elite job. It's just not in a tier of its own or in the top 2 or 3. I still think they will attract a very, very good coach. I think there's some good candidates out there. I mean, not that I'm making the decision, but I always like to go. It's funny. I'm going to contradict myself because I think I'd like to go with a guy who's proven he can win in a power conference and recruit and do all that stuff and navigate the NIL waters and the transfer portal waters. But a lot of the best coaches, and this is going back, but a lot of the most successful coaches in the SEC were hired as assistants. Mm-hmm. Again, maybe this is going back too far, but Kevin O'Sullivan at Florida, Tim Corbin at Vanderbilt, Dan McConnell, I know it's not the SEC, but at ACC. I believe he was an Ole Miss assistant. Mm-hmm. And Mike Bianco was an Ole Miss assistant. Again, these are guys that have been around for decades. But it just kind of shows there's no proven path. If you're a good coach in the right situation, you're going to win.
And I'll keep on that a little bit because there are some assistants that, especially a lot of fans like Josh Elander's the biggest name that in terms of names that are thrown around that aren't in current head coaching jobs right now that might be wildly popular. And he's had a lot to do with Tennessee's success. But do you think there might be an assistant out there that could come into a job like this and be able to take it head on like that?
Yeah, and I mean, I forgot the best recent example. Tony Vitello was an assistant at Arkansas. So I would not eliminate an assistant if I were an AD. Here's what I would say about been talking about college football coaching searches for years. We can sit here and go to Wikipedia and look at someone's resume, wins and losses and conference record and recruiting, all this stuff. But ADs and school presidents get paid the money and have to make the difficult decisions, and they get to sit in the conference room at the Fort Worth Marriott for 4 hours and go face-to-face with the person. That's how you can tell that someone's really up to the job. It's very difficult for us because most assistants aren't high-profile enough. They're not doing interviews. We don't know a ton about them. You got to really get to know these guys and figure out, yes, Tony Vitello is a guy that can translate his skills as a recruiter and a pitching coach to being a head coach, or why certain guys can't make that transition. So, Elijah, I think there's probably plenty of assistants out there. It's riskier. And when you got a guy who's making his, third coaching hire, and the first 2 didn't work out great, you might not want to go down the risky path. You might want to go down more of the proven commodity path.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part. And what we were saying, Mitch, and I'll just leave this thought in your head for now, is that what this Gamecock fan base wants is for them to go have Ray Tanner go back 20 years and hire the Ray Tanner equivalent of 20 years ago, and then from an administrator standpoint, do everything that this administration did to make Ray's program the best in America. Much easier said than done. If there was a magic wand, you could do it, but that's the hard part these days because of the expectations that were built all those years ago. Mitch Light is with us from The Athletic. Let's get into this weekend, and let's start with Tennessee. They've had the best team in the country a couple of times. They've got it again right now from a seeding perspective, and maybe they get a little bit of the luck of the draw in Evansville, or are the Purple Aces going to head to Knoxville and shock the world?
Yeah, it's just whether or not Evansville wins in 2 games or 3 games. I mean, that's basically what we have to figure out. No, it's obviously a favorable matchup. There's no doubt about it. And, Evansville, give them all the credit in the world to go win that regional the way they did. I know they got a veteran club and all that, but from a talent standpoint, Tennessee is the far superior team. But Tennessee was a far superior team to Notre Dame a couple years ago. And Notre Dame went in there and with a veteran team, and they didn't care, and they won that game. So, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to sit here and predict Tennessee's going to lose the game. I think Tennessee catches a break, though, because not facing Wake Forest or not facing East Carolina, both of those pitchers, Burns and Yasevich, I would say his name wrong. I saw that game, every pitch of that game when they threw against each other. Those guys are elite, and they are capable of shutting down that Tennessee offense. But so not having to face that true number one pitcher is a break for Tennessee.
When I look at the games that start Friday, Mitch, and Elijah and I talked about this the other day, Tennessee, Evansville, FSU, UConn, Virginia, K-State, and then North Carolina versus West Virginia. I like all the home teams in that one. But on the Saturday ones, Kentucky hosting Oregon State, Georgia hosting NC State, Clemson hosting Florida, A&M hosting Oregon. Not predicting that the road teams all get it done, but I love the road team opportunities on the Saturday, Sunday, Monday Supers.
Totally agree with you. NC State, you guys saw what, I know Elijah was up there, and there's a team that they don't really stand out. You look at their stats, nothing really jumps out at you. They're kind of middle of the pack in the ACC in a lot of things except winning. They won a lot of close games this year, and they kind of know how to win. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Georgia. We talk about this all the time. There's a lot of pressure on home teams in regionals when they expected to win. If things don't go well early, you kind of feel that nervous energy of the fan base there. So Clemson had that last week. Maybe they got over that, advancing. They'd lost 5 straight times as a regional host. You saw how celebratory they were. You usually don't see number one seeds, national seeds celebrate like that, but that was more like a decade of frustration there. But we know what Florida is, and we saw them. The thing that made them scary is the way they pitched at Oklahoma State in a hitter-friendly park. So I totally agree with you guys. I wouldn't be surprised if 3 of the road teams won in the Saturday, Monday Supers.
All right, Mitch. Over under 3.5 SEC teams are in the College World Series.
There's 4 remaining, right?
5.
No,
5.
there's 4 hosts, right?
Yeah, 4 hosts.
5?
Yeah.
I'm going to go over. I'll be an SEC homer and go over. I'll say Florida. I'd say, and this is very fashionable, and I feel bad for Kentucky because I've listened to a bunch of podcasts and everyone's picking Oregon State, but I'd say Kentucky loses and the other ones win. The other SEC teams win.
That's fair. I could get behind that. Again, Tennessee got a favorable draw overall, but Evansville can't pitch. Georgia. I don't know. Are there going to be a gajillion home runs or almost no home runs at Foley Field in Athens? I'm not so sure. And I think Oregon can be sneaky good, but I think Mitch might be onto something. But I do. I think there's a couple of those teams, on the Saturday through Monday, that could go get it done. All right, we'll talk to you again next week probably about this. But if Tennessee doesn't get it done, and win the College World Series.
Yeah.
How does that change the dynamic in Knoxville?
That's a good question. I mean, Tony Vitello is beloved there. Maybe he's beloved by 3% less of the fan. Like every year you don't win, you get more doubters, right. And then it becomes a monkey on their back. And sort of like to a greater degree, like what we saw at Clemson. Every year that they didn't get out of a regional for like a proud program, it added more pressure.
Yeah. And
it's just going to keep adding pressure. Now, I'd like to be in that position. Any program would like to be like the number one seed. But I don't think it really changes much except, hey, you didn't do it again this time. That's 2 times in the last 3 years. You've had the best team in the country or the number 1 seed, and you didn't do it. If we're here talking 2 or 3 years and it happens again and again, then you got to look like, what are they doing? I just think there's too much variance in baseball to sit here and say, oh, that coach can't get it done because he hasn't gotten it done yet.
Yeah, it's a hard tournament to win, no doubt. Mitch, appreciate it. Have fun this weekend, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys, take care.
You bet. Mitch Light of The Athletic. Mitch Light to follow on Twitter. Follow up with what he had to say as the postgame show continues. Cato's Power Equipment, some of my favorite people to tell you about. Why? Well, because I'm a customer of Cato's, and the products that I have received from Cato's Power Equipment over the years have made one of my favorite hobbies, yes, yard work, a whole lot easier and a whole lot quicker. And even though I like doing it, sometimes it's really hot in this town, and I'm ready to get it done. But my 30-inch Toro Time Master is just, it's cut my mowing time in half, and about to go in there and get a few other things from these guys pretty soon. Need a new blower, to clean up after myself. It's just that kind of thing. And Ben Cato reminds you that a lot of companies right now running a bunch of sales this summer. Chances are pretty good. If you want it or need it, it's on sale at Cato's. Check them out online, catospowerequipment.com. Don't forget the service department can get you in, get you out real quick, especially for you guys that do it for a living. 4012 West Beltline Boulevard, where they've been since the 80s. Family-owned, Cato's Power Equipment. Talking some college baseball on this Thursday afternoon. Thanks again to the Athletics' Mitch Light for joining us, giving us his perspective on the Gamecock vacancy, not necessarily throwing around a lot of names. But he did say, hey, don't be afraid of an assistant coach hire. But at the same time, with an understanding of Carolina's program's status. But he echoed in a slightly different way what Ryan McGee told us yesterday. And I think, Ryan yesterday gave us the great line, comparison is the thief of joy, right? Mitch is right. I mean, you look around and virtually every program in the Southeastern Conference is really good. Auburn had a bad year. They didn't even make the tournament in Hoover, but they have been to the World Series a couple of times here recently, more recently than South Carolina. The one program that might struggle and has still been okay at times is Missouri. They've had some talent. The difference for Missouri is their town is literally sandwiched in between two pretty good baseball towns. And in the case of St. Louis, so that's my point being that's where the baseball interest up in the Show Me State really lies, not so much with Mizzou the way it does here or at LSU or a couple other schools. But appreciate Mitch's time, and he did basically agree with us. The road teams that'll all start play on Saturday have a better opportunity to pull upsets than the road teams that start Friday, which is why Connecticut and West Virginia and Kansas State will all advance to the World Series.
Exactly. Because you've already spoken that into the ether.
That's
Don't
right.
sleep on West Virginia, though. They're
good.
They've got a dude on that team.
Yeah.
Who you're not convinced is a real person.
West Virginia and K-State out of the Big 12. That's a great baseball league, man.
Yeah.
It's a great baseball league. So
West Virginia was without their best player for 25 games to begin the year, so their resume wasn't very good. So that was a team that had a 3-seed resume, but was better than a 3-seed.
The only two schools that would shock me if they were to advance, and one even more than another, obviously Evansville is number one. That's a duh.
That's the David of all David and Goliath.
I mean, that's it. I mean, really, the only thing that would have not shocked me about the Greenville Regional Champion is if it had been Wake Forest with their pitching and they had gone to Knoxville and been able to win. That wouldn't have been a shock. But even if East Carolina had advanced out of their home regional and gone to Knoxville and won, I would have been, mildly shocked, perhaps.
Given their history, yeah, it had been really shocking that's how they broke through.
And then the other is in that same bracket. If Connecticut goes down to Tallahassee and wins, I'll be surprised. We saw Connecticut come here and play a super regional in 11, and they had a couple of good guys back then, but Carolina was just obviously a whole lot better, so that would surprise me. But any other road team, I mean, I could rank them in terms of surprise,
surprise
candidates.
Factor.
Yeah, K-State perhaps at Virginia, but I wouldn't be stunned because again they're coming out of a solid week in, week out, really hard to win in conference. So there's that. But appreciate Mitch's time. Let's get back around to the search and day 3 of Elijah's poll questions with candidates. Today we had 4, so let's get to that and see what people are saying.
Yeah, we got a little more creative today since it's the last day before we get to our final. To end the week, we thought we'd
put Casey Stengel on this one. Get creative.
Yeah, put Joe Torre in here. Put 1996 Joe Torre and see if we could summon him. But again, he would have to recruit.
Yeah,
but
now you can hire a recruiter, man.
Yeah, he might be able to. If
Joe will be the closer.
That was Mariano Rivera.
Yeah.
You're having you're misremembering. But here are the 4 we have today: Chris Lemonis from Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Josh Jordan, LSU assistant.
Yeah.
Skylar Meade, current head coach at Troy, former pitching coach here, and Landon Powell. We have 237 votes.
Okay.
And right now, Chris Lemonis leads at almost 41% of the vote.
Yeah.
Landon Powell in second at 30%. Skylar Meade at 15.6%. Josh Jordan at 13%. And after this poll runs out, which will be in the next 20 hours, we will have a mega poll with our winners / Chris Pollard. Because yesterday, Pollard and Elander was so close, decided by a couple of votes. Terry and I, we conceded. We'll let him in the big poll.
Okay.
So we'll have, in tomorrow's poll, the winner of this one, along with Chris Godwin from ECU, Josh Elander, Tennessee assistant, and Chris Pollard from Duke.
Okay. Listen, again, I get the allure of Landon Powell. Landon needs to go become a Division I head coach first, in my opinion. If you want to bring him in here as an assistant when the next hire is made, that's a different story.
It'd be a loud ask. That's the thing. It's a big ask for somebody who hasn't coached this level.
I get the allure. I do. I 100% get it. But, again, Winthrop is open. Coastal is open. Citadel is open. So there are jobs here in South Carolina that he could probably land one of those three if he wanted to go pursue it.
Certainly.
That would be my suggestion, but that's neither here nor there.
If I'm Winthrop, I'm absolutely calling.
I don't know what Chris Lemonis's situation is in terms of buyout. I imagine it's pretty big. I think Chris makes around $1.25 million. He's won a national championship. Again, there's the allure. A lot of people. A lot of people feel like the reason you got to go get Landon Powell is because he knows Carolina baseball. Well, I mean, did Ray Tanner know Carolina baseball? I don't necessarily buy into that. But with Chris Lemonis, what you would get is a South Carolinian from Myrtle Beach, played at the Citadel, knows the landscape around here. Chris wanted the job last time. Which is one of the reasons why the connection was very easy to make. The irony is you might have had three dudes now. I'm just going to throw out three: Lemonis, McDonald, Walter. They all wanted your job last time. Not to say they don't want your job this time, but the landscape has changed dramatically for all three.
I say their circumstances and the amount of money they're all making has changed for all of them.
And it may well be that they're cost prohibitive. I don't know who Ray Tanner is and is not talking to. I don't know. I would think that between Ray and Chance and their ability to call agents, or in the case of Ray, knowing a lot of these guys, that he might want to pick up the phone and just, again, kick the proverbial tires. Do you find out? I think you need to exhaust what you can with Chris Lemonis and find out, because at his age, he's in his early 50s. I think he and Dan McDonald are about the same age. Chris might be a couple years younger than Dan, but this might, otherwise that might be it. My point being, Chris could just State. Listen, y'all know State will take care of you. That's a baseball school.
Well, they just built those extensions in their outfield to the stadium that basically has like really nice apartments out there too, and that's a really nice stadium, and they've done some really cool stuff to it just in the last 3 years.
And again, he's won them the national championship they craved. Yes, they missed the playoffs the next year, but he got them back this year, and things are trending in the right direction, and they'll do what it takes with NIL. And
they were one bad inning away from beating Virginia too.
I mean, they want that program to remain on top. So it may well be that you can't get Chris Lemonis now. I don't know, but I would certainly go after that. Jordan is interesting, like Elander. Someone who's been working well under a coach. In the case of Jay Johnson with Jordan, I love the alliteration. They've won a national title.
Easily confusable.
Yeah, I know. Elander, they've not yet done it, but Tennessee can go do it this year. I think several of these schools that are of the 16 that are left, I think there's about 12 of them that are championship caliber. So you can certainly make that case for a lot of schools, which is why I asked just a minute ago about the feeling around Patello, but it's too early to say, oh, he's a failure. Again, look at what happened with Ray Tanner. It took a while.
Program building.
Yeah. But I think you need to go find out what's going on around Chris Lemonis.
Certainly. And that's one we haven't talked about as much because, I guess we put out our initial lists. Lemonis might have been a little further down, but I certainly think, all the guys that were interested in it last time, that crop of Walter, McDonald, Lemonis, if they had the interest in it before, always gauge exactly what it is now. And if there's not the same type of interest, ask why not and what can be done to maybe make that little interest meter go up a little bit.
I'll get some numbers on exactly what his buyout looks like. Again, I know he's making $1.25 million, but we'll find out a little bit more for you. Want to get into the Dan Hurley story, too. This is the Postgame Show. Welcome back in. Postgame Show continues on this Thursday. Coming up in about a half hour-ish, our buddy Alan Cole of Gamecock Scoop, rival site covering Carolina athletics, will join us with what he is learning about the Gamecock baseball coaching search. Just looking this up. So I'm going to quiz you here, Mr. Campbell.
I love a good quiz.
Of the top 10 head coach salaries in college baseball, how many of them are in the SEC?
Of the top 10 college baseball coaching salaries, I'm going to say 7.
9.
Oh!
And you know what?
That's all of the 9 millionaires.
10, at least on the list I have here, 10 is Dan McDonnell. Some of these could have changed in the last little bit. But Dan McDonnell is 10th. The top 9 in the country are Southeastern Conference coaches.
I'm kicking myself because I totally neglected on some context clues where we talked yesterday about there being 9 coaches in the SEC that make over $1 million.
And let's see, again, what I've got here, Corbin, Bianco, Schlossnagel, Vitello, Van Horn, O'Sullivan, Lamonis, Johnson, and Thompson. 1 through 9. Butch Thompson at Auburn. And again, Auburn didn't make the playoffs this year. Dan McDonnell is 10th. Tim Corbin, by the way, 2.4. Mike Bianco is second on the list at 1.625. Tim Corbin makes almost $800,000 more than Mike Bianco at number 2. So
a Vanderbilt coach being the highest paid coach in the country in anything is remarkable on its own.
What he's done, he's amazing, man. And again, Vandy, listen, I've talked to enough people around college baseball. There's some real envy. It's like somewhat positive envy around Tim Corbin. But Vandy has methods at their disposal as a private school to offset the 11.7 number. I know a lot of folks a few years back said that Georgia could do the same thing. Several Georgia players could get into Georgia on the in-state scholarship, whether it's a Hope or whatever they call Life, Hope, whatever the state of Georgia has. So academically, some of those kids would qualify for that, and then they could use that to put them on the baseball team almost as a walk-on, which is pretty solid. I would urge other state schools to do that. Of course, now it may not matter because if this settlement goes down as constructed, the House versus NCAA settlement, then 11.7 is going away. So, and there's another factor I might add.
At how this whole sport is going to change?
Yeah. But again, most schools are going to want to go pay for it. Our buddy John hit us on Twitter, and
it's hard.
He did. This is interesting. This is our guy John who calls us a lot. Unlike most programs at Carolina, this is a top-tier program from a national standpoint, and it's time to go out and get a coach with a top-tier resume. This is the time to go big. Don't get something from Walmart and tell me it's Tiffany's quality. That's from John on the Twitters. John, I think you sum up, as I've mentioned a couple of times in the last few days, what a lot of people feel, and you don't want it to be a direct reflection on some of these candidates. It's just a desire to see this program restored to its glory days, or as close as you can possibly get, because there are no guarantees. You and I were talking this morning, and those of you who follow college baseball closely know who Mike Martin was. What an amazing and wonderful coach at Florida State. Went to Omaha 23 times. Didn't make the tournament 23 times. He took his team to Omaha 23 times.
That's insane.
No title. It's so hard. And yet, again, you and I were joking, Fresno State sneaks in as a 4 seed 15, 16, 17 years ago, whatever it was, and wins the College World Series. Oregon State came out of nowhere as a baseball program to win back-to-back titles in 07 and 08.
And then become good enough to continue that to where they win another one 10 years later.
Yeah. And now they're a premier program. Again, a lot of us think that Oregon State's going to go to Lexington this weekend and win because they're Oregon State. There's no pressure, but they're good enough to do it. And there's now, Oregon State's in the College World Series. Of course they are.
Yeah.
And yet Mike Martin, I mean, Florida State's in the College World Series. Of course they are. No title. It's hard. It's so hard. But you've
College
got
World Series is just the beginning of it.
Yeah. But you've got to put yourself in position. And have you done that? Are you going to do that again? Will you invest what's necessary? And again, I just gave it to y'all. The top 9 coaches in America in salary are in the Southeastern Conference. That's your neighborhood, man. You want to keep living in it? Got to keep up with the Joneses. Hour 2 coming up. 4 o'clock on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the second hour of the Postgame Show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you inside the Herndon Chevy Studios, downtown Columbia, wherever you are. Thank you for choosing to be with us. We appreciate you. Thanks again to our buddy Mitch Light for joining us last hour, talking a little college baseball, including the Gamecock search. We'll stay on that topic in a few minutes when Alan Cole of Gamecock Scoop, the rival site covering Carolina, joins us with what he has been learning today. Speaking of coaching Scoop, I do want to get into this and have a little bit of time to discuss it because it has been such a big national story. By now, most of you have probably heard that this morning, Woj, the great Adrian Wojnarowski, for those of you who don't follow a lot of the NBA news, Adrian Wojnarowski is pretty much the best in the business. If you know who Adam Schefter is with the NFL, I would say Woj is like 2 Shefties good. But when Woj drops a story that's really big, it's been nicknamed over the last few years a Woj bomb. And he's really good at doing it. Well, today, Woj dropped one of the biggest bombs he's ever dropped when he said that the Los Angeles Lakers, arguably the most famous and popular basketball team on earth, are targeting Dan Hurley of Connecticut, who just finished a season with a second consecutive national championship at a school that's won 5 basketball championships in the last quarter century. Dan Hurley makes in the neighborhood, I think, of $7 or $8 million. I don't know what the new contract looks like. I think he's the 4th or 5th highest paid coach in college basketball. I don't see him yet getting to a place where he rises above Bill Self or Coach Calipari, but he should certainly be playing in their ballpark. And so it's not really about Connecticut. This is the Los Angeles Lakers. You know, Terry and I were talking earlier, and I think I was mentioning it with you too. This isn't the Hawks calling, right?
Which you absolutely do not answer.
Yeah, you're right. Like, you still have a team? You know, this isn't the Bucks even,
go to games.
You know, who have won a title now and have Giannis and Dame. This is the Lakers. And it's not just about LeBron. It's the Lakers. Even mighty LeBron is not bigger than the Lakers.
17 NBA championship, yeah. Los Angeles.
LeBron may be bigger than the Cleveland Cavaliers, where he helped his home area team at least finally win a championship after his championships in Miami. But no player, Kobe, Kareem, Magic, none of them are bigger than the Lakers. This is also a team that had Elgin Baylor and Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain, and Shaq. I mean, again, it's the Lakers. So you got to listen. There are some who already seem to believe that this is a done deal. I threw this out earlier because I saw it, and I don't know much about the dude. But Paul Hembekides is, I guess, sort of a de facto contributor and producer. He's on air sometimes, but he's like Mike Greenberg's producer, right?
He's like a stat guy. His Tony Reale.
On the Get Up show. And he said today, Jim Harbaugh and Danny Hurley, fresh off national titles, jetting to the pros within months of each other, is a sad commentary on the state of college athletics. And I ask, obviously rhetorically, how or why is it sad? It's a business. I don't think it's sad. It's I mean, to the fan bases, maybe you're bummed. Michigan didn't want their Michigan man to leave them. Mm-hmm. And Dan Hurley didn't go to Connecticut, but I mean, again, Connecticut's become a premier blue blood program, man. I mean, who else has more titles in the last quarter century? I think the answer is nobody, right? Chapel Hill's got 3, and Duke has a couple since then, but again, they're kind of on their own shelf right now.
Done it with 3 different coaches in that span.
And I know people rag on Kevin Ollie's title. I'm like, I don't care how you did it. Did you get it?
He did it.
Yeah. And again, remember, as we've said, they had to win the Big East tournament in 5 games. They went on an 11-game winning streak. Kevin Ollie did something right. Anyway, it's not sad. It's not sad. And nor is it unique. Now people today are trying to pay, this is all because of NIL. Why did Jimmy Johnson leave the Miami Hurricanes for the Dallas Cowboys?
Had to have been NIL, right? He was so mad with the NIL that his players were
Rick Pitino left Providence for the Knicks, left the Knicks for Kentucky, left Kentucky for the Celtics. Nick Saban left LSU as a national champion.
Same scenario
for the Miami Dolphins. Steve Spurrier left the Florida Gators a few years removed from his title, but I want to say they won the SEC right when he left or right before. Yeah, I can't remember exactly. They were very good regardless. He was still winning 10 games a year.
The Rex Grossman led.
And wanted to try, his hand at the NFL. I still say, by the way, quick aside, that Saban and Spurrier at the time of their hires into the NFL, in my opinion, worked for the two worst owners in football. Meddlesome, ignorant to the sport. I'm paying you a lot of money. Why aren't you winning the Super Bowl? Kind of a thing. But anyway, both came back and had successful runs in college. Saban was pretty good.
That was all right.
Yeah, he was all right. But I can't, and there are others. Now, look, Terry and I were talking about this earlier, Elijah, and I want your take on this because you follow these things more closely than I do. Terry is like, and I didn't push back on him per se, but he said, college guys fail at the NBA level. I said to him, so do a whole bunch of NBA assistants. They cycle through coaches in the NBA like no other sport. I mean, I don't know about hockey.
Hockey might be the worst offender of coach recycling.
And I see it in English football, English soccer all the time.
Major League Baseball does it.
But so is it that college guys go and fail, or is it just that the NBA is such a players' league that if you can't find a foothold pretty quickly in terms of respect from the roster, then they just tune you out, and then somebody else has to come in and try it. So I don't know how much of it is exclusive to those who leave the college ranks and try their hand at the NBA. Billy Donovan's been hanging around for a decade now, not with tremendous success, but he's doing okay. And they're
Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, Calipari was decent for a little bit with the Nets. The one that surprised me, I thought Pitino, because he could command respect, would be better, and I just don't know where the disconnect was, especially
stylistically.
Yeah, especially in Boston.
In the NBA.
Yeah,
athletes are too good.
Yeah, I think that could have been it, but that comes back around, and this is where I want you to comment on why there's a real feeling that Dan Hurley could be great in the NBA, and it's because of the offense that he runs.
It is the most beautiful offense college basketball has probably seen in the last 20 years. I was so fascinated watching UConn play offense this year because it's so great off ball. It's so creative and it's very modern. Like a lot of NBA teams do similar sets that look like what UConn does, but there's not an offense that incorporates, better cutting off ball that's built off specific players who know how to move without the basketball or how to read pick and rolls really well, or be able to go into second, third actions of the offense and be able to make a defense pick their poison. It's almost kind of like with how the Dallas Mavericks have been when they traded for Daniel Gafford and P.J. Washington. Two guys who, one's a really good screener and roller. P.J. Washington's great without the ball and going to the corner, shooting corner threes. They now have a pick and roll offense where you can do two or three things really well defensively, but you're still going to give up something,
right, and
they'll exploit that. That's why they did what they did to the number one defense in the NBA in Minnesota. Dan Hurley's offense at UConn is the exact same way. I loved watching them play. My biggest thing is it is very well documented that Luke Murray, son of Bill Murray, is the innovator and pretty much the guy who would go to Europe and look at how Turkish offenses were run. And he got to steal a lot of that stuff, and they were able to utilize that. They watched a lot of EuroLeague basketball to help develop the offensive sets that they employed in the last two seasons. And it worked with different rosters. That's the thing, too. They lost a lot from last year's team, ran the same offense, and had even better success. They were better this year. That could work in the NBA. That offense can absolutely work in the NBA. But is he going to command the respect of the locker room? That's the thing. And it's always going to be a hard thing whenever the players who are making more than you have to be cool with, buying into this type of offense with all this type of movement. If you get buy-in from the players, he can be successful. I don't know exactly how much buy-in he's going to be able to get, but from a basketball X's and O's standpoint, I would say Danny Hurley and Luke Murray combined, the tandem of them, are as good of a coaching combo that exists at any level in basketball right now.
There's a part of me, because I like the story, that wants to see this. But I will admit there was a part of me, and I know it's different, that wanted, 20 years ago ish, when the Lakers pursued Coach K.
I just got a text from Ron Morris saying the Lakers wooed Krzyzewski in the early 90s. And that would have been really interesting to watch, to see if it happened. Just
was it that long ago? I was thinking it was when Kobe was there, but that's beside the point.
I think it happened again. I think it happened on multiple occasions.
Yeah. And ultimately, I think the Krzyzewski family just decided, no, Duke is who we are, and it's what we do. But I think because, again, it's the Lakers.
Yeah.
It's not just the NBA, right? I mean, and I mean this in a good way, but like Billy Donovan left Florida, but he left for OKC. Yeah, you had a couple of good players over there. I get it.
It helps.
Yeah. But it was still OKC. It wasn't Boston or LA.
Left for Orlando for a day.
Yeah. And let's face it, the NBA has the Lakers, and then it has the Celtics, and then it has other teams sort of depending on the flavor of the year and where the best players might be. The Bulls are no longer really the Bulls, right? The Heat
Far removed.
The Heat. I mean, they're still really – the Heat are good. But they're not, they're not LeBron and D Wade or D Wade and Shaq.
Not contending for the title.
Right. I mean,
they were in last year. But that's
you could make a case that the Bucks
oriented.
underperformed relative to having two of the greatest players in the league. The Spurs will be back. I'd like to think
they did draft a 7'3" alien.
It's crazy.
Handle the ball on the perimeter
but the Lakers and the Celtics remain the Lakers and the Celtics through good years and bad. And the Celtics, of course, are now the best team in the NBA and favored to win another championship this season. But I think because this is the Lakers, I think you pursue it and you see what happens. So I'm here for it. And I don't think Dan Hurley at UConn is in a place in his career or life where the Krzyzewskis might have been when the Lakers said, we'd like you to come do this.
And here's the thing, too. If I'm Danny Hurley, which I'm not, but you'll always maybe ask yourself, what if you don't do it? Because if he goes to the Lakers and they fail and do what happens to so many LeBron, played on basketball teams where the coach gets fired and oftentimes scapegoated, whether fairly or unfairly. I think that has happened on multiple occasions in LeBron's career. But if that ends up becoming his fate, he goes to the Lakers, he's fired after 2 or 3 years that are unsuccessful, or maybe even one if he goes full David Blatt. There will always be a spot in college basketball for him.
Right.
Shoot, UConn might welcome him back if it doesn't go very well. There will always be a spot in college basketball for him, and he's always going to have it, right? He is already a Hall of Fame coach from a Hall of Fame coaching lineage. No one's going to turn down Danny Hurley if he ends up not succeeding at a place like Los Angeles.
Yeah. I mean, heck, whoever UConn hires to replace him, should he not do it, they might just be like, hey, we're going to put a clause in your contract that you immediately are out.
If Danny Hurley's available, we call it the Danny Hurley clause.
We'll see. And you know what, to put a fine point on it in terms of the what if question you asked, and you don't want to do that in life, while Coach K did not go to the Lakers, he obviously became the Olympic head coach, coached NBA dudes to a bunch of gold medals, and resurrected American men's basketball at the international level after the failures of 2004. So he got to scratch that itch in some way.
He did. Yeah, he did. And get to elevate his coaching legend to that point. And that's why I love listening to LeBron and when Kobe was alive, Kobe doing interviews about Coach K running those practices and how it wasn't maybe an X's and O's kind of thing, but he was really good at commanding the respect of the room. Those guys respected him despite him being in college and despite them making, all of them, infinitely more money than he does. So Coach K could have, if we want to play the hypothetical game that has no answer to and people can argue all day long because there is no actual right answer, I do firmly believe that Coach K would have been a really good NBA coach because of that element.
Well, speaking of coaching vacancies, we'll talk to Alan Cole on the other side of the break. GamecockScoop.com, the rival site covering Carolina athletics. What's he learning about the baseball search? We'll hear it when the postgame show continues. 20 minutes after 4 o'clock on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Let's jump back into the Gamecock baseball coaching search. Welcome Alan Cole onto the program, covering Carolina sports for Gamecock Scoop. Appreciate his time. Alan, how you doing, man? And you getting any sleep as we all try to figure out who this guy's going to be?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's day 40 of the 4-day coaching search. Is kind of how it feels right now.
Yeah. All right. So what are we hearing? Are you able to eliminate names? Where do we stand when we you want to shoot? You hear the fans. We're shooting for this top tier guy. You're hearing whispers that guys like Dan McDonald may be off the list for buyout purposes, things like that. But where do we stand right now in terms of who's still active on this list?
Yeah, I don't know if you would point blank eliminate names. I think John was talking about this yesterday on your show, but I think the McDonald thing is probably closer to off the board than a lot of other names, just because one, the buyout, like you mentioned, and two, Louisville missed the postseason. So this is something he's been free well over a week now. And at this point, as you get into this search, and it's not like Ray Tanner woke up on Monday and decided, I think I need to make a change in the baseball program. This has obviously been in the works for weeks, months, and Dan McDonald's been free for a while. So if you want to mention that name, I think I don't want to say entirely off the board. I have not been told that, but I think that's probably lower right now. And I'd probably, even though they're still playing, put Kevin O'Sullivan kind of in that same category just because of the buyout purposes as well.
Yeah, the buyout thing, we've talked a lot, might end up being a pretty big hurdle, but one thing we've also mentioned, we're talking about a lot of head coaches when it comes to who the potential replacement's going to be, and a lot of names that some fans have thrown around there, names of maybe some assistants, and Josh Elander from Tennessee is one of them, and certainly there's some others you could pluck, but what is maybe the sense you're getting that if you do get turned down by some of these names like your McDonald's, your Walters, Pollards, Godwins, that it might be a plausibility that Ray takes a very risky approach and goes after maybe one of the more known assistant coaches like a Josh Elander?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting one. I think kind of what Elander brings to me and is interesting is just that kind of blueprint. One, the blueprint for himself from Tennessee. You're looking at them maybe going to Omaha for the third time in 4 years here this weekend. And two, it's a very similar approach to what Georgia did this time last year, firing Scott Strickland, getting a top-level assistant from LSU and Wes Johnson, and 12 months later they're hosting a Super. I think that's on the table for sure. I don't know outside of Elander how many assistants are realistic, because I think Josh Jordan to LSU is another name that's been kicked around a little bit. I think if you're going the assistant route, it has to be a very big swing, a top-level assistant. And I think there's a reason most of us have heard names that have been head coaches in this search, just because that's something you kind of need in South Carolina, I think. But there's probably a small pool of assistants who I would say are still around.
And Alan, on that note, let's be honest with ourselves. Monty Lee is an assistant, but he has head coaching experience, and his name does seem to be amongst those at the top of this list. I'm curious, on y'all's website, what maybe some of your members are saying, what more you have been hearing out in the community about, what Monty's candidacy may represent.
Yeah, I think you asked about kind of what it represents. I think it's a very interesting point or interesting question, just because, if Monty Lee was the only name on the board, if he was the first name on the board, it would already be done. He's in the building. He's technically the head coach right now. He's the interim. And if that's all it took, it would already be done, because the portal's open. You're trying to fill out a roster for next season. You're trying to make plans going forward. You got the draft next month, all those things. I think the longer this goes on and it's not Monty, I think that's showing – I don't even want to say they don't want it to be Monty, but that you are exhausting all resources. You are kicking all tires. You are looking around elsewhere, because you've got the guy in your building who is going to say yes, who has said he would say yes already, and who players, recruits have advocated for. So I think more what that represents is just the longer you look around elsewhere, the more it means you maybe don't want Monty to be the guy, and that's maybe more your fallback option than. I don't think he's number one on the board, put it that way, because if he was, I think he would already be the head coach.
Is it sort of in case of emergency, break glass? Is that what Monty is?
I wouldn't want to say it exactly, but I think it's probably closer to that. Just because, again, Ray understands the situation here. He understands that, Monty, I mean, let's be honest, that was kind of a disaster at the end at Clemson. He missed the postseason 2 years in a row there. It hadn't happened since the 80s. Never got out of a regional at Clemson. I think he, as much as anybody, understands kind of the backlash here, kind of the – I think Monty Lee, put it this way, is probably the most divisive hire on the board, the most divisive candidate. I think half the fan base would love it, would want the connection with the players, would think it would work, and the other half would say, it did work at Clemson, why would it work here?
And what type of – in terms of connection to the state, right? One thing you see with a lot of players or coaches is throwing out, like, let's use Landon Powell, for example. Some people want Landon Powell to be the head coach because of the connection of a player. One of the reasons why people want Monty Lee to be the head coach is because of his connection with the entire state. He's coached several places here in the state. One reason Chris Lemonis is named, not just because he's a college champion at Mississippi State, but because he has great connection to the state of South Carolina. How important do you think that is to this search realistically?
I think it factors in. I also don't think it's I don't think it's a deciding factor, if you want to put it that way. I almost think ties to the area as much as just ties to South Carolina specifically are important. We've heard Chris Pollard's name quite a bit. That's a guy who's coached at 3 different schools in the state of North Carolina, but he's obviously been around the Carolinas. Cliff Godwin in East Carolina is another one we've heard quite a bit. I think it's almost more ties to the area and kind of the places you're recruiting than just specifically the state of South Carolina. But I also think it factors in for sure, and that's a lot of why Monty Lee is getting as much sort of traction as he is.
We're talking to Alan Cole of Gamecock Scoop, talking the Carolina baseball search. I'll ask you a question that I've asked several this week that are around the program a lot. How much do the financial implications matter here? Again, buying somebody out, having to up the amount that you're going to pay somebody, the staff, the enhancements, et cetera. I mean, everybody has limitations, but what are we looking at here? What are you hearing about that?
Yeah, it's always hard to know. I do think there's limitations here for sure. I don't think it's kind of why I never really entertained like the Kevin O'Sullivan thought, right? That was kind of the first name on the board in 17. Well, college baseball is different than it is now than it was in 17. NIL, portal, that kind of money. The facilities at Florida are obviously probably better than they are at South Carolina now. So in that sense, yes, you have limitations. You can't necessarily outbid or outpay anybody. But I also think this is a crucial hire for the program, obviously, for the athletic department as a whole. By waiting to fire Mark now versus last year, you drop the buyout by $400,000. There's no reason to think that money isn't going back towards the baseball search. I think it's a factor. I don't think it's a deal breaker for most of the candidates, although for a couple I think it could be, just because, like I said, South Carolina is not – we know it's not A&M, it's not LSU. It's not going to be able to pay anything at once for anybody. But I think, Walter, Pollard, Godwin, guys like that, none of those guys are making the Kevin O'Sullivan, Dan McDonald type money.
Right.
And there's a way around that.
Got about 30 seconds here for you, Alan, but I'll go ahead and ask because, other teams in the SEC have kind of surpassed you, like a Tennessee, Georgia, Kentucky being, hosting a super for the second straight year. How much is that factoring into, I guess, the timeline in terms of how patient they're going to be with this?
I think it behooves you to go quickly with this search just in general, just because like I said, every day you don't hire someone to the day you're not filling out your roster for next year. The portal's open. There's I think over 3,000 names in already. Like other schools in the SEC are filling out their rosters right now, and every day you don't have a coach that you can do that and build the best roster you can for 2025.
Yeah, for all the work Monty might be doing right now as the interim, does it all just if somebody else
exactly.
comes in? So we'll see. Alan, good stuff. Appreciate it, man. We'll holler at you again soon.
Sure thing. Appreciate it.
That's Alan Cole. Alan, I think it's 2 underscores, right?
It is.
Yeah, Alan, 2 underscores, Cole, COLE, GamecockScoop.com. A couple of you hit us on the text line and Twitter. Want to get to that as we talk baseball, coaching, search. Also have a few football things to get to. This is the Postgame Show.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We'll start here in Richland County. One on Monticello Road near Highway 215 and Winterwood Road is causing some decent traffic backup. Got another one on Lower Richland Boulevard at Garner's Ferry Road. One on Green Lawn Drive at Garner's Ferry Road. And in Lexington County, we have 2 accidents recently reported. One on I-20 eastbound at Highway 34 near Exit 44, and one on the Columbia Airport Expressway at South Carolina 602 in Platte Springs Road.
Talking the Gamecock baseball coaching search, which has dominated the local news stories all week long. Mark Kingston relieved of his duties early Monday morning. Here we are on Thursday, still searching. And these things, usually take a little while. I like that Alan Cole, the way Alan put it just a minute ago when he was joining us. It didn't like Ray Tanner woke up Monday morning and goes, oh.
I feel like making a change.
Yeah.
The same way someone might wake up and be like, you know what? A haircut might be needed.
And
I was thinking about it for a while. Different kind of decision.
It does beg the question, how much the team knew about their performance and what impact it might have on their head coach. I'm not here to really discuss that so much, but to the point of, again, what was the, hey, you have to do this or else kind of a thing? Or was there not one of those? And Ray just realized, maybe it wasn't Monday morning, but maybe as Will Tippett watched strike 3 come down the pike and Carolina was kind of quietly humbled by James Madison 2-0, did Ray say, you know what? That's it.
I had a feeling the thought might have been placed in there at the end of that Georgia series.
Yeah, maybe.
Innings 8 and 9 of the Georgia series had the feel, just from being there.
Yeah.
This is all gut feeling, all of my little tummy here of what I felt after that game ended. It felt doomsday-ish for a lot of people around that team.
Yeah. Before we get on the phone, sit tight, Ernest. Coming to you in just a second. I want to follow up. We had Charles hit us on Twitter after what John had said, and let me read John's again for those of you just tuning in. John said to us a little while ago, unlike most programs at Carolina, this is a top-tier program from a national standpoint, and it's time to go out and get a coach with a top-tier resume. This is the time to go big. Don't get something from Walmart and tell me it's Tiffany's quality. That was from John. Charles said, I agree with John. Bring in a top-notch coaching staff and call Darius Rucker to drop a little coin into some facility upgrades. And then he asks, is the parking lot still gravel? I didn't make a game this year. Yes, the parking lot is still gravel.
Can't confirm.
And I would like to see them pave that. But look, that's not where you need to spend your money right now. Do you need to enhance the developmental tools for your baseball team first and foremost? Do you need, where can you enhance a few things, perhaps trimmings and trappings wise, around the ballpark? Two different things, by the way. There's the facility underneath and behind where players train and practice. And then there's, where fans enjoy the game. And if I may, one of the things that needs to happen again on a routine basis is that ballpark needs to be full. I say this about the football stadium all the time. They didn't build Williams-Brice to hold 80,000 so it could hold 65,000. If you wanted it to hold 65,000, you could have done that.
And then it looks better on TV. You build the capacity to what you think is going to be taking up.
And this year, there were not a lot, if any at all, true sellouts. There were games that might have been announced as all the tickets having been sold, and there were a couple. A Kentucky game, one of those, and one of the Arkansas games. Friday night, Arkansas had a pretty good crowd. You didn't get a Clemson home game this year because that was the one that was rained out and ultimately canceled. But that ballpark needs to be full. And you know what? Speaking of revenue, you fill the ballpark up more often, and you make more money.
You get money for the gate.
Yes. And now that you can buy a beer,
You get money for that too.
Yeah, and on it goes, right? And again, you're not gonna make money hand over fist in college baseball. No program does. But if you could be very close to self-sustaining, break even, that'd be great. There's only a handful of baseball programs that are making a profit, and none of them are, again, making a big one. Arkansas, LSU, they're doing all right.
Oklahoma State, something like that, because of what they've done to their stadium.
There's only a few, right? There's only a few. Even when Carolina, when the ballpark was new, they weren't really making money on it because they were paying off the debt on the construction. So, it's just, but you need to fill that ballpark up more often. But I'd worry about the gravel parking lot. Maybe not last, but close to last.
In terms of priorities of upgrades at Founders.
Yeah. Ernest is up next on the Love Chevy phone line. Hey, Ernest.
Hey, Jay, I asked Elijah this, and I'm going to throw it out to you. We're wasting time because, like you said, the portal's open. So there's players out there. Are we going to get any better if we let them players sit out there? If you're going to make Monty Lee the coach, make him the coach. If not, let's get our new coach in here. But the question I was asking is, how much did Monty Lee make when he was at Clemson? You're looking at going and buying these coaches out and then possibly paying them $1.2, $1.3 million. So you're going to spend $2.6 if they have buyouts. Why not just give that $1.2 to Monty Lee and give him a 2-year contract and see what he can do? Otherwise, go big or stay home.
Yeah.
So we got to get this done ASAP.
Yeah, I think they'll get it done in a few days. You raise a couple of interesting points, and I had somebody else kind of echo that to me, like, well, listen, if you're going to pay this and this, why not just use that money on, say, an assistant hire instead of a buyout, and then, get a better staff or whatever you got. I get those things. Now, look, you're not giving Monty Lee a 2-year deal. Nobody's taking a 2-year deal. Minimum is going to be a 4-year deal. Now, anything, you can fire somebody after 2 years and whatever the buyout is. And you may be able to get a guy like Monty to say, all right, it won't be a huge buyout. And I don't know what Monty made his last years at Clemson. I would think you'd have to pay Monty at least what you were paying Mark, and Mark made $700 last year. You're not going to dumb it down even more. That's my words. But, everybody, I just gave you all the numbers, by the way. 9 Southeastern Conference coaches make more than $1 million. They are literally the 9 highest paid coaches in America, at least for what we have. I don't know what Tom Walter's making, so he might not be on this list,
Because Wake Forest doesn't have to.
Yeah, but I and again, some of these things could have shifted since that was published before the season. I don't know about the bonuses and when things kick in and all that,
Escalators.
I know Walter's up there pretty good, and Coach Avent at NC State's up there pretty good. Coach O'Connor makes a lot of money.
A lot of ACC.
Yeah,
ACC,
so,
that's the hard part about plucking somebody from the ACC is that they're all pretty well compensated.
Right.
You have to basically pull them down to I don't want to say a harder job. I don't know if South Carolina's
because we had a caller yesterday asking about Brian O'Connor, and I was like, look, Brian's he's happy in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
I mean, there might have been a time when he was interested in this job, but he's won his title. They're in the Super. They're hosting the Supers this weekend. He's not going here. He's good.
Yeah.
He's good. But you're not doing it for a 2-year deal, Ernest. Again, minimum 4, most likely 5. And again, in theory, you make a fine point. If you're going to have it be this guy, and that again, this is just me talking and answering Ernest's question, but it could well be that is one of the things that Ray Tanner is looking at, and that he and his staff can crunch those numbers. All right, if we were to go pay out, whoever's buyout and give them a raise and tell them that their staff budget is much greater than what our current staff budget is. Because what Carolina's current staff's making isn't very much. You might have to double, both, right? Double the coach's pay from what you were paying Mark Kingston and double what his staff is going to make. And these things do begin to get expensive, which is why I have asked. I'm not asking it from like, hey, is Carolina just trying to, completely cheap out here? Where are the financial constraints? Because everybody has them. Even mighty Texas and Florida and Texas A&M at some point have a constraint. Well, maybe A&M doesn't. But everybody else seems to. A&M just doesn't care, man. But no, in all seriousness, I don't know where that wall is that Carolina has to run into from a financial standpoint. But at the same time, one of the points that's being made amongst the fan base, and I get where they're coming from, is, do we want to be one of the premier teams in this conference, which will also mean you're one of the premier teams in the country? Because right now, for as proud a program as this is, you are not seen that way. It's seen that you can get back to it, but you're not there right now. You finished 10th in the Southeastern Conference. That's the reality. That's not an opinion. That's reality. And so, do you have to overspend? Do you have to find creative ways to go get it done? Maybe so. Do you really need to, could you convince your biggest donors who may have grown a little apathetic with baseball and say, listen, if I go get this big name, can I count on you for X amount of dollars over X amount of years to really pump this thing back up again? Again, these are the ways of the world in today's college landscape. Get back into a couple of phone calls as we stay with this one. I'll get to Elijah to update the latest coaching search poll question when the postgame show returns. 11 minutes in front of 5 o'clock on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Coming up top of the hour, headlines of the day. We'll get into a few football thoughts. The FPI is out, and I'm looking forward to a full season of the EFPI. I don't know if it's as reliable as the EBPI.
Oh, they're all reliable.
But the ESPN FPI has made its, I guess, predictions. And it's a computer.
It's its first edition.
Yeah.
Because it refreshes, I guess, every week, the same way like an AP poll does.
Well, don't they like constantly run like 10,000 simulations, and that's how the FPI works, basically?
Pretty much.
Something like that.
No.
I was not at all surprised, but we'll get into that in just a little bit for you. Back on the phones talking about the Gamecock baseball search and all things going on, and with it, Keith is up next. Hey, Keith.
Hey, Jay.
How are you?
Hello.
Hey, man, we got you. What's up?
Hey, okay. I called the end of last week at the tail end and just made a comment. I'll reiterate that. You would think, and I would be in agreement, Ray Tanner, with the career that he had, you would have to respect his ability. If anybody knows what it takes to be the right coach, I think we would be naive to say that he's not the guy. But the pushback on that is you look at Ray Tanner's record and, you kind of scratch your head. But I guess we just got to trust and see what happens. But I just hadn't seen a hire yet that gave success and longevity in the same sentence. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Listen, Keith, I've heard a few different refrains of the same message. Let's stick with the baseball part for now because that's where we are. And, having some conversations around this search, one of the questions that was asked of me is, would you say that Ray Tanner is one of the best baseball minds in the country? Yes, I would. Then would that still allow this fan base to put its trust in what he believes is best for the program? And I said, well, I'm going to stop you there. For some, absolutely. But for others, they're going to say Ray Tanner's 0 for 2. And in baseball terms, if you go 1 for 3, that's pretty good. You go 0 for 3, it's not so good. And right now, here's strikes 1 and 2 are there. And what's coming? Is Ray ready to hit it? If you want to stay with some baseball analogies, whoever Ray hires is going to come from a place where Ray believes he is going to be the best person for the baseball program. But as we've talked about, and as our last guest Alan Cole said, and as we've had others say this week, including John Whittle yesterday, Monty Lee is a polarizing name right now. There's a lot of people that will support Monty, and there's a lot of people that will say, that's the best we can do? I don't know which one's right or wrong. And it's not really up to me, Elijah. It's not up to you. It's not up to John Whittle. It's not up to David Cloninger or Alan Cole or anybody else we've spoken with, Jack Veltri. It's up to Ray Tanner. But fans are going to have their opinion. That's part of what we deal with every single day. And I can get both sides. Again, do I see where the positives are in a guy like Monty Lee? Yeah. Do I see where the negatives are in Monty Lee? Yeah. And thirdly, do I see what a hire of Monty Lee might represent in total from a more symbolic standpoint? Yeah. So, Keith, I look, as I've said before, you look at Shane Beamer and you look at Lamont Paris. Shane has had some success. Last year was a setback for a variety of reasons, and it feels like they've made some corrections to try to put it back on course, whatever that might look like. Lamont Paris absolutely overachieved last year, but he's done well in the portal to keep the roster strong, and now there's new expectations for Carolina men's basketball. It'd be amazing if he could get back-to-back trips to the tournament. That's happened twice in my lifetime, and I'm 53. Where they've made consecutive trips.
The expectations for both those programs are significantly different than it is for this baseball program.
Exactly. And that's the rub here, is that this is a nationally prominent, was, and still is to some degree. It's lost its luster. But it's not as if you've fallen on such hard times that this isn't, for instance, if I may, this isn't what's happened at Rice or Fullerton.
Nebraska football.
Yeah, or even Nebraska football. Yeah, it's not that. You know, Wayne Graham had Nebraska, had Rice rolling for a long time, and they won a title. Fullerton won titles in 4 decades, and they're just not heard from anymore. And I get it.
They won like 18 games this year.
You know, yeah. It's just, I mean, they're terrible. It's sad.
Makes me very sad.
Sad. I mean,
the Big West is still a good baseball conference. It's not just like the teams in that conference. They're getting killed by the teams in that conference.
Yeah, and Nebraska football. That's a great analogy too. Carolina's none of those in baseball. You're making the tournament. You made the Supers last year. You hosted last year. This season, you were on your way, and then again, as we said a gajillion times, the wheels fell off. But Keith, yes, there are a lot of people who are going to look at this hire and say, Ray, you're 0 for 2. Mm-hmm. And if it's the same kind of hire, a roll of the dice, there's going to be a lot less people that have faith in that hire than the last times around.
Tom Osborne experienced a very similar thing at Nebraska football.
Headlines of the day, more on the baseball search, some Gamecock football to talk about as well. Drive around the SEC, all coming in the final hour. You know, a lot of us love the homes we live in. We've been raising our families there, living in the neighborhood for a while, but things get a little outdated, and you say, I'm not moving. I don't need a new house. So what can I do about it? Well, you can call Palmetto Citizens and take advantage of some fantastic rates right now with their home equity lines of credit. That's right. Use what you have built in your home from a, monetary standpoint. Use it to your advantage. When you unlock your home's equity, you can easily access a line of credit over the 10-year draw period, assist you with all of your goals and needs. As the kids get older, maybe they're moving out and you want to redo their room for something else for you and the missus, maybe a pool out back, update the kitchen, whatever it is. Take advantage of what you've already achieved. PalmettoCitizens.org is the website. Learn more. Stop into any of their 14 area branches. My wife and I are customers. We use the branch on Millwood. Great people there and all around town. Palmetto Citizens. Achieve your potential.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to report to you that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We'll start here in Richland County. An accident on Greenlawn Drive at Garners Ferry Road is causing some incidents, as well as one on Laurel Street at Hardin Street. and Monticello Road at Highway 215 near Winterwood Road, and one on Sumter Street at Richland Street. All those accidents causing some minor traffic backup. We have a disabled vehicle causing issues on 26 westbound over at I-20 near exit 107B. Mild traffic backup, nothing too serious, but traffic still moving pretty slowly through there. And lastly, we have one in Lexington County on Columbia Airport Expressway at South Carolina 602 and Platte Springs Road.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Thursday. Welcome back in. The final hour of the postgame show coming at you. Jay Phillips and Elijah Campbell, thank you for being with us. We've talked a lot today, as we have the last several days, about South Carolina's baseball search.
We do that. Talk a lot.
We do. Nothing new to report when it comes to candidates. It does feel, I've not been able to fully confirm this, mainly because I don't know Dan McDonnell, but was told from some reliable sources this morning that maybe that conversation has been had. The buyout is big. Dan makes $1.3 million. You'd probably have to, and he has a contract that will ultimately escalate to pay him better than $1.5 million. There is a buyout involved as well. And that may make it cost prohibitive for Carolina to lure the former Citadel player and longtime very successful Louisville coach to Columbia. Other than that, I haven't heard that anybody else is off the board. And again, I can't fully confirm that Dan McDonnell is off the board, but that maybe that one's been had. You and I mentioned earlier, looking at Nick Mingione's contract at Kentucky, is that a guy you could lure away? And you would think on the surface, perhaps you could with what he's able to do. There again, very cost prohibitive buyout. He has a new deal that doesn't pay him much right now, a little over $700,000, but will escalate over the 5-year deal to pay him more than $1 million. And if Kentucky were to fire Nick, they owe him what's left. If he leaves Kentucky, he owes them what's left. So you're looking at a buyout for Nick Mingione over $2 million. And you're not doing that.
No.
Not to say he's one of your guys, but I'm just saying you're not doing that. And that's where the buyout is for Kevin O'Sullivan, from what we're told. Mm-hmm. And Kevin's now approaching, that higher range of coaches when it comes to salary, better than 1.5. So those are some of the names that you're hearing, and I don't think it's O'Sullivan anyway. No. I do think McDonnell was a very viable candidate, not just a candidate, but a very viable candidate. And I do think, we keep using the term because it's just the fun one to use. You've kicked those tires a few times. So we don't know where Ray Tanner is on this right now. I know Monty Lee has gone public with saying he wants the job. We expect nothing less at this point.
Desirable job.
Yeah. We know in the past that some guy, my question would be right now, and I'm very serious as I ask this because I don't have an answer, and it's hard to find these answers until later, at least. How many agents and or the coaches themselves are calling Ray Tanner? A lot of times you'll hear, hey, we had a lot of interest in our job. And it's believable. And I'm certain that there is high interest in South Carolina's job. But from whom? Is there really heavy interest from the top-tier candidates that you'd be interested in? And I'm not saying that Dave Van Horn or Jim Schlossnagle are calling you, or even Tony Vitello. But is Chris Pollard interested in this job? What would it take? How does Chris work with his agent and Duke to make it happen if he is? Is Cliff Godwin really interested in this job? We keep hearing all week from multiple people, 3 people on our show this week alone. Cliff's very happy at East Carolina. He just doesn't want to leave. Brian O'Connor at Virginia. He doesn't want to leave. You can't fight that.
If you're at a destination job, you're at your destination job.
And look, I know some Gamecock fans will look at a guy like Cliff Godwin and go, Cliff, bud. South Carolina's a better job than East Carolina, but not to Cliff Godwin.
That's another thing, too. Because here's, from what me and you, we've both been told, we've spoken to different people about this and have still received the same answer. It's that Cliff Godwin has a life mission to get East Carolina to the College World Series because of just the ties he has there, the time he has spent there. It would feel like if he left, it is, a job that's not complete. That the job's not finished for him because he has not gotten them to Omaha. And I completely understand it and respect it, which is why when we talk about Godwin, in the back of my head, I've never taken him that seriously as a South Carolina candidate because I had a feeling the only way you pry him out of there is if you give him a Godfather offer. And if you give him the Godfather offer, then you can probably make that to other candidates that I think might be better fitting for this program.
And for Carolina fans who feel like for that faction, and I don't think it's really that big, but for that faction that believes Landon Powell is the guy for one reason and one reason only, and it's because he went to Carolina. Well, East Carolina is where Cliff Godwin went to school. Not 1 but 2 degrees. Assistant coach, head coach, and 4 super regionals. Hosted again this year. Upset, but you hosted, and it hurts when But to your point, Elijah, I mean so you understand. To him, he's got that lure of the alma mater. Yes, he was one of the 2 finalists for the LSU job 2 years ago, but it didn't happen. There's whispers that if Mike Bianco were out in Oxford, that he would take the Ole Miss job.
That's the one he would want.
And there's a lot of reasons to understand that too. Maybe maybe I know this sounds funny, but maybe Columbia, South Carolina isn't the lifestyle he wants. And I know this ain't Manhattan, man. It's a fine town, but maybe college town is really just what he likes. He likes Greenville. Now, of course, he wanted to go to Baton Rouge, which is about the same size as Columbia, but that's also the LSU baseball job.
And LSU is probably able because of their athletic department and how profitable it is. We live in a town with a very profitable athletic department. South Carolina's they're not broke by any means. I don't want it to come off as that. But what LSU can provide financially is probably a little different than what South Carolina can provide financially. And I think if you're going to get Cliff Godwin out of ECU, with that emotional tie, with that emotional burden that he has of not ever taking them to Omaha, I think you're going to have to really, really give him something he just couldn't refuse. And that's why, I know we have a comment, that says multiple outlets reported today that, Godwin is target number 1. Well, Zoe Deschanel could be my number 1 target for a future mate, but, she has to say yes. And if she doesn't want a 6'4", long-haired, bearded man, then I can only do so much to sway her to live with me. So that's the thing with Godwin. I know this is still a good job, and if Godwin made the College World Series with East Carolina last year, I think you probably do have a much better chance at being able to win him over. I just don't see it as the biggest plausibility. I'd love for it to happen, but I don't see it as the biggest plausibility in terms of some of the other names.
The lure of the alma mater is great, and that's why he is where he is. The one thing we talked about with that, and because I have, I reading between the lines today, it did feel like maybe they've gone to Cliff once and they're going back again. So
with another offer.
Yeah, maybe they are trying to really zero in. And sometimes when you found your guy and they say no, Lou Holtz said no to Mike McGee twice. I've said that before sometimes about hey, make them say no twice. Maybe you make somebody say no 3 or 4 times. Where's the breaking point? I don't know. But we talked about it yesterday. Ray Tanner and Cliff Godwin could talk one-on-one. Forget the agents and the other intermediaries. Ray to Cliff. Hey, I'm from North Carolina. I have 2 degrees from NC State. I played at NC State. I was an assistant at NC State. I was the head coach at NC State. And then I saw something that could change my life, and I went for it. You're from Greenville, North Carolina. You went to East Carolina. You played at East Carolina. You have 2 degrees from East Carolina. You assisted at East Carolina. You're the head coach at East Carolina, and you've done some good things at East Carolina. I want to make you an offer that'll change your life. Maybe that's what they're doing. And they have those similarities as guys who really achieved their dream and then realized, at least for Ray, there's something else. And Cliff did go for one of the 3 or 4 biggest prizes in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get it.
It's really close.
So, who knows, man? Who knows? I've seen some of those things too, and I think he's quite viable still. I do. But we hear why it's going to be difficult. So do you try to get him down here and see what's up?
I'd be really impressed if they are able to get him here because of those things. That's the thing. If they are able to get it, if they're able to get Cliff Godwin, then you shouldn't, I guess, second guess the administration's desire to make baseball a premier power in this conference.
I agree.
Because it's going to take a lot. That's the thing.
If you get Cliff, that's a fantastic hire. If you get Cliff Godwin,
significantly, and then you did a lot to get him out of that place where his mission in his career is to get them to Omaha.
Yeah,
that would say a ton about the pull that Ray had to be if in this hypothetical they're able to pull that off.
So we'll talk more about it coming up in just a little bit here and get into more of y'all's tweets and texts as we've gotten some good ones today. But I need to get the rest of the headlines. And the biggest one nationally today, if you did not hear it this morning, it was the first thing I saw when I woke up because the Woj bomb was dropped early. But Adrian Wojnarowski, ESPN, reporting this morning that Connecticut men's basketball coach Dan Hurley is now the top target for the Los Angeles Lakers. They are preparing what he says is a massive long-term contract to bring him into the NBA. He says that Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss, who run the team, are, from his words, eager to formally discuss with Hurley their vision of marrying his dominant program built upon his tactical acumen and elite player development with the storied Laker brand. He's 51 years old. He has told his players that there is contact and that he is going to meet with the L.A. Lakers, so that he's not going to sit there and BS them. No. It's the Lakers. We talked about it earlier, but we'll say it again. It's the Lakers. It's not the Hawks. It's not even, it's certainly not the Wizards.
Or the Orlando Magic.
Even the Magic, yeah.
Billy Donovan coached for one day.
The Rockets even. It's not even, it's not the Knicks even.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the Bulls. It's the Lakers. The Lakers are the most popular basketball brand on planet Earth. And you have to at least listen to what they have to say. He's making, in the neighborhood of $7 or $8 million a year.
Yeah, which would put him in the top class of college basketball coaches.
I would think that the Lakers, as we sit here and talk about what Carolina might have to do to take somebody out of a potential dream job, and Dan Hurley didn't go to Connecticut, but he's from the Northeast, and he and his family love being up there. He's a Jersey guy. But, I would think, what are you looking at? You tell me, 12, 14 million? I mean, you're maybe not going to double his pay, but I would think 12 million they could do rather easily.
You have the ability to. I think that's the thing. You have the ability to. There's no salary cap for coaches in the NBA, and you'd have to make it worth his while to live out in LA too, where the cost of living is a little different than it is in Stewart, Connecticut. But if we're being honest with ourselves, so you'd have to make it worth his while.
I want to think that even the $8 million he currently makes could get him something nice in LA.
Maybe he can get him a studio apartment.
Yeah, that's true.
There you go. Yeah. The wife might not like that. He might get you the studio there, pal.
Well, then the 12 mil. What's it take for the ocean view? Right?
That's right. Yeah. Call up Sean McVay and say, hey, how much was it for you to get your place? I would like something similar.
I don't want to look at the parking lot. I want to be on the other side of the building.
That's right. I would like to be able to have some good scenery.
I'd like to see if this happens.
I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
I'm a Laker fan, and if they hire him, I'd be split. It depends if he brings Luke Murray with him. That's my biggest thing, because Luke Murray is, when you talk about Danny Hurley being a X's and O's tactician, he does not have that reputation if it is not for Luke Murray being the architect of his offense.
He's coming with him.
I would like to see Luke Murray come with him.
He's coming with him.
Has to.
I mean, this is the second or third time that
and then you might get Bill Murray with you, which is even better.
Yeah.
Bill Murray could sit by Jack Nicholson at these games.
Oh, my God.
What a combo. That would be great.
That'd be amazing.
Just for that alone.
Yeah.
You bring the Hurley-Murray combo with you.
That'd be pretty cool. Braves were humbled yesterday by the Boston Red Sox. Braves stay on the road tonight in D.C. against the Nationals. Atlanta will send Ronaldo Lopez to the Hill as he goes for an all-star bid, 3-2 with a 1.73. Lefty Mitchell Parker for the Nats. He's 4-3 with a 3-6-0. The Braves are 8 games out of first place in the National League East.
Still comfortably in the playoff picture, though.
Yuck. But I'm okay. I'm trying to hold it all together. That's our Integrated Media headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media, 803-948-8327. All of your home entertainment and home security needs all in one place on your phone, on your tablet. They can get it done for you. I love what they've done for me. I promise you'll love them too, no matter what you want in home theater. Make it happen with my good friends at Integrated Media. More on the Gamecock baseball search and a few Gamecock football notes when the postgame show continues.
A whole lot of discussion this week about coaching changes, and rightfully so. But for some of us, we look ourselves in the mirror, or we get that appointment with a doctor that say we have to make some changes ourselves with our lifestyle, whether it be eating habits, losing some weight. And for me, I had that same kind of epiphany. And my friends at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss helped me reach a goal to be able to live a more sustainable, healthy lifestyle and be able to feel better, sleep better, be able to just function a whole lot better and be able to create the habits that are going to help me do this for a long, long time. Look, there's no pills, there's no shots, there's just diet plans specific for you and your lifestyle and a personalized coaching that helps you get the job done. My friends Paul Grant and Shaylin over at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss did numbers for me, and to learn the secret of losing up to 1 pound of unhealthy fat per day and start your own success story and change your life, give them a call, 803-824-4210. Results may vary.
20 minutes after 5 o'clock on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us, talking some baseball. Got a few football things to get to, and it looks like William wants to touch on both of those, so we'll give him the next word this afternoon. Hey, William.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well, man.
Yeah, honestly, I really hope that we can get the guy from, I think it's East Carolina, from the Pirates, or either the guy from Louisville. I like Monty Lee. I like, what he's trying to do. I appreciated what he did at Clemson. I'm a Carolina fan, but, it seems like he did what he could there. But I feel like Ray Tanner can't afford to roll the dice here. I feel like he needs to go out, and if we want to get back to Omaha, then you want to win big, then you're going to have to spend big. That's just the nature of the business. And my comment about football is, I've looked at our schedule and I see we play Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, Oklahoma, you know what I mean? And realistically, I see us maybe winning 5 games this year. And my question to that is, if we don't make it to a bowl game this year, do you think Beamer's on the hot seat next year? I mean, what do you see panning out with football? And I'll hang up, man. Thanks for taking
Okay, William, thank you, buddy. Cliff Godwin at East Carolina, Dan McDonald at Louisville. Again, is Cliff Godwin being kind of honed in on as target one? It kind of starts to look that way. Again, from what I was told this morning, McDonald, maybe they've had that conversation. I just think certain things are cost prohibitive. But William, you said something I've already said. I know there are limitations, though. You can't just go throw whatever at it. But if you want to be amongst the nation's elite, then you've got to spend it. You just have to. You just don't have a choice. Again, 9 Southeastern Conference coaches make more than $1 million. Again, it doesn't mean you have to pay your guy $1 million and still be good. Mark Kingston was on the way to a 1 seed until it all just went to hell.
Until Georgia paid us a visit.
Yeah. And Mark makes $700,000. Cliff Godwin currently makes $600,000. As we said, you could give Cliff a 50% raise, and you're not at $1 million, and that might be really nice. I'll take a 50% raise on whatever I'm making.
Yeah, certainly.
I mean,
wouldn't say no.
So could that be part of it? Who knows? On to football, and I'll blend these two things in.
This is an interesting one.
So the ESPN FPI is out today. It says South Carolina is currently the 33rd best team in America. It expects South Carolina to win 6 games. That's an improvement over last year. But I'm a guy who believes, we talked with Coach about this before. Now, coaches don't like to put numbers and those kind of things on it. You go out and you try to win the next game. But, I'm a guy who believes South Carolina should, in most years, have an expectation of winning 8 total football games with a combination of conference and non-conference victories. I don't think that's unreasonable. Some of you think it is, and Jay, make it 7. Again, I don't like to haggle over 1. But is 6-6 as a literal improvement over the previous year good enough? Yeah, I guess. It's not going to get – now if Shane doesn't make a bowl game again, I think that was sort of Williams' point, is he on the hot seat? Well, the seat certainly warms up.
Mm-hmm. He'll get more time. That's the thing. I think they're going to be patient with him, and everything, in terms of people I've talked to, too, say that there's going to be some patience there. But you can only be patient for so long. You can only miss playing football in December so many times before eventually it's going to catch up.
I can't remember what year now that Mark Stoops is in at UK, but I do remember that at the end of his 5th year, they were averaging 5-7. And then in the next whatever years is when it began to get going. Mitch Barnhart gave him the time, whereas most athletics directors in the Southeastern Conference after 5 years and an average record of 5-7 would have said, thank you for your time. Here's your buyout check. Best to you and the family. If Shane Beamer is at 5-7, after making bowl games in his first 2 seasons and slipping in year 3, And I mean, last year they were, again, I know you can't do this in life, but the Florida game, my God, make a couple of tackles and don't have a ball bounce just stupidly right into a dude's hands and you win that game. And if everything else is equal, then you're at least in a bowl game. But that's my point. At least in a bowl game isn't going to be good enough here longer term. Now, the seat warms up, but because you do spend a lot of money on football. But I can see a situation unfolding, especially in today's world, where there is a bit more patience with allowing Shane to come in. What Shane took over, brutal.
Don't say completely bare bones, but it's close. I mean,
compared to what Will was left, you could say that Will was left a mess too. And to some degree, he was. Carolina forgot how to play defense the last couple of years under Whammy. But they just couldn't tackle. God, that 14 team. If that 14 team could have played even a little bit of defense, they win 9 games blindfolded. They were so good on offense. They couldn't tackle. I digress. So, this is one of those things like our good friend Langston Moore will say. There are ways to measure the progress of a football program, and while wins and losses will always be indicator number one because you are what your record says you are, there are ways to say, have you narrowed the gap in terms of the places where you are deficient? Are you better up front on the line, both sides? Are you better at stopping the run, which has been a real problem for this team for several years? Are you narrowing the gap between you and the best teams? You don't get to measure yourself against Georgia this year. You don't get to measure yourself against Tennessee or Florida this year. You will go, obviously, to Clemson. You go to Oklahoma and Alabama in back-to-back weeks. That sounds frightening.
Potentially both of them could be championship contenders.
Yeah, well, they're
for Oklahoma. They're kind of a wild card, but you're still going to Norman.
Yeah. Alabama in the new FPI is number 5. And if you don't know what the FPI is, it's the computer ranking that ESPN uses.
They simulate the entire season 1,000 times,
yes.
and
then come up with it. Yeah,
percentages.
And they use a lot of things in there. They use your expectation level, your talent level, your recruiting rankings, your strength of schedule. All of it gets poured in to their algorithm, and then they spit out a number. Again, Carolina's number 33. Yep. The teams on Carolina's schedule this year: Alabama is 5th. Oklahoma is 8th. Missouri is 10th. LSU is 13th. A&M is 14th. Clemson is 15th. Ole Miss is 16th. Let's see. Who else we got here? And then Carolina at 33. Kentucky is 34.
They both have them in Kentucky at a 61% chance at getting 6 wins, but both of those teams will be a big obstacle for them to get to 6 wins.
And then you got Vandy and a few others down the bottom of the list. So look, you should always make a bowl game here now. There's too many bowl games. Last year, again, the one thing last year, I don't put it on coaching. I mean, maybe some training things and things they need to do. Why were those guys up front on offense so beat up? Why did you roll through so many offensive linemen? What can we do about that? And some of the football experts I spoke with said there's strength and there's conditioning. They aren't necessarily synonymous with one another. You need to be strong before you are well conditioned. And is strength the number one thing for a bunch of young kids? Yes, it is. And that's what a lot of experts told me. They needed to be stronger to allow the physicality, and then you condition your body. Conditioning is a lot more what the NFL guys do. Those dudes are grown men. 18 and 19-year-olds are nearly grown men. But if you're going up against 22-year-olds on the other side, a lot.
It's a massive jump to have to make.
But you weren't supposed to play a bunch of true freshmen on the offensive line last year, and you ended up playing a whole mess of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you rolled through what? Did you have 12 different guys as a starter?
Well, you didn't have the same starting line.
Maybe
for
like
2 straight games until late November.
Yeah, like twice.
It was the Vanderbilt game.
Right.
Jacksonville State Vanderbilt was the first consecutive games that you actually had the starting offensive line intact from one game to the other.
So, you've got a veteran defensive line. Make that offensive line better, and a lot of things go your way. But you're also, working in Lenore Sellers and a whole new crop of receivers. It's going to be interesting. Drive around the SEC coming up.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We do have some good news, though, and that's the incident on I-26 westbound near I-20 and exit 107B has been cleared, so traffic moving a whole lot better on that part of the roadways. We still have some issues, though, here in Richland County. We do have an accident on Highway 16 near South Woodrow Street, one on I-20 westbound at Wilson Boulevard near exit 71, one on Laurel Street at Hardin Street, one at Sumter Street at Richland Street, one on US 176 at Broad River Road and St. Andrews Road, and lastly in Lexington County, we have a accident involving a deer on I-20 eastbound at Highway 34 near exit 44 that is causing some decent traffic delay.
It is Drive Around the SEC time here on a Thursday afternoon. Jay and Elijah with you. Welcome back in. We're going to continue our discussion, so we'll just kind of incorporate the SEC into the whole FPI discussion. Once again, the ESPN Football Power Index was released today. They'll update this again, I guess, in like August? This is sort of the one going into the summer?
This is the one now that all the transfer portal, I guess, windows have closed, and we have as close as we can to a live roster.
Georgia is the number one team in the FPI.
Stunned.
Their projected total is 10.3 wins. How do you get 0.3 wins? No, I'm kidding.
You only lead for about 2 minutes of the game.
They have an 11% chance to go undefeated. That's all. Oregon, meanwhile, has a 16% chance. Oregon's the best.
Bad Big Ten.
Yeah. By the way, yeah. Let's do that for a second. Hey, Elijah, who's the best team in the Big Ten?
Would that be Ohio State?
No, it's Oregon.
So weird. I hate it.
Ohio State.
I disagree. I think Ohio State will end up being the best team.
Ohio State is number 4, but their chance to win out is 7.5%. What are Ohio State fans doing right now? Are you bleeping kidding me? We just lost to Michigan 3 times. They won a title, and now Oregon's better than us?
I mean, them seeing this FPI ranking would make you become a Luddite really fast when it comes to your attitude towards computers.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this, right? It's only a computer ranking. But listen,
the computer can't hurt you.
Would you rather have this or the opinion poll is where the people would just go nuts?
Yes.
You know,
argue with the computer.
And I don't know what the first AP poll will look like. And I don't care enough about the coaches poll anymore. I don't really care too much about the AP poll, but since the CFP poll doesn't come out till like the week before Halloween, then I at least have to go to some degree by what the AP poll is telling me.
That's why I subscribe to the EFPI.
Yeah, well, I will. I'm anxious for a full season of the EFPI.
For only $99.99.
Oh, well, I can't pay for it.
Oh, well, it's unfortunate.
Maybe I can. You think the station will pay for that?
We'll see if we can comp it. I know a guy.
Who do you think the second best team in the Southeastern Conference is?
I would have guessed. See, I have looked at it before.
Oh, so you've seen it already.
I would have guessed Ole Miss.
Yeah.
The EFPI would have Ole Miss pretty firmly at number 2.
Okay.
I would say they're Alabama or Missouri. Alabama.
Texas.
Oh, I forget. They're there.
Texas.
I hate it. It's disgusting. No, Texas is going to be dangerous.
Texas is number 3.
Texas is going to be very dangerous.
They also project them to win 10 games. Their win-out percentage, 6.8%. So considerably lower than Georgia's 11%, 10.8 officially for Georgia. Alabama is next in the SEC, again at number 5, 9.3 win projected total. Oklahoma is in the Southeastern Conference now, kids. They are 8th in the country with an 8.2 win total projection. I'm going over that, man. Again, what's Vegas saying? 8.5 for Oklahoma? I was.
Yeah,
I think Oklahoma's going to win a lot of games. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. I don't know. A lot of people are a lot. I mean, here's the thing. Oklahoma's 8th in the country.
There's there's some question marks there. I'm a believer in Jackson Arnold. I think the kid can really play quarterback. He threw some interceptions in the Arizona bowl game. But he showed some flashes. For the most part, I came away from that game thinking that with a full offseason of coaching and being the number one guy and taking the number one guy reps, that you're going to get a lot out of him. Here's the big thing, though. That was a season last year where he was under Jeff Lebby as the OC.
Yeah.
Jeff Lebby is no longer there.
Mississippi State.
That's right. That's a biggie. Who's calling plays? I think that's the biggest question mark for that offense.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Tennessee is 9th in the country, 8.6 projected win total, so better than Oklahoma's. Again, Oklahoma's computer rating is slightly better than Tennessee's. And again, the factors are expectation, strength of roster, strength of schedule, it's all kinds of stuff.
It would make your head hurt.
Yeah, it does, man. I don't like numbers. They scare me. Missouri is 10th in America.
Missouri's going to be good. I forget how much they get back. They get almost that entire offense minus Cody Schrader back.
Of Missouri, Tennessee, Oklahoma, who's projected to win the most games?
Okay, not looking at it. Missouri, Tennessee, Oklahoma. I would say Missouri.
It's a trick question. Yeah, it's Missouri.
Oh. I can see that. I can
No,
totally see it. That's where they're at.
How?
That offense is loaded.
I'm not dogging it. Again, this is the computer. This isn't an opinion. This is the
Let's
computer.
break the computer.
I'm fine. I'm fine with this. I'm messing around a little bit here, but Missouri. What is Eli doing? It's crazy.
Out of nowhere. For a coach who his first 3 years was 500.
Where's he going next? NFL or somewhere else in college?
The hell out of here.
I don't think
in terms of the SEC.
I just don't think he can stay at Missouri for that much longer if that's what it's going to be.
Somebody would poach him. If they do what they did last year, then somebody will poach him.
LSU is 13th in the country, projected win total 7.9. A&M 14th in the country, projected win total 7.6. Mississippi is 16th in the country, projected win total 7.9. Auburn is 19th in the country, 7.2. Florida, now again, here you're going to say, well, Florida's terrible, Jay. They're not even going to have a winning record probably. Why is Florida rated so highly? Strength of roster.
They do have a stronger roster than they did last year.
Yeah, they have great talent. It's not being utilized.
And there's a little bit of continuity this year as opposed to last year.
South Carolina actually projected to win more than Florida. Barely. Carolina is literally at 6.0 and 6.0. Florida is at 5.9 and 6.1. You don't see Florida this year. Again, Florida is number 20 in this rating. Then we get down to Carolina as the next SEC school at number 33. Kentucky is number 34. Both of them, again, are right at 6.0 to 6.0. How much farther down do I have to go here? Arkansas is 44th, 5.5 projected win total. Mississippi State is 49th in the country, 5.1. And Vanderbilt is way down here somewhere. I forget where Vanderbilt was.
That's where they're at. They're in hell.
Yeah, bless their heart. Vanderbilt coming up last at number 76 in the country, projected to go 4-8. Now, you saw one of the over-unders that was like 3.
It was 3.5.
3.5.
Vegas over-under's 3.5.
Yeah, I'm taking that.
Never say never, baby. They got some gimmies on there. They got some gimmies on that schedule. I think if they mess around and accidentally win one of the games they're not supposed to, Virginia Tech maybe. Virginia Tech actually will be pretty good.
Yeah.
I think I'm sold on Virginia Tech having like an 8-win season this
Virginia
year.
Tech is number 50 in the brand new FPI.
They have the same percentage of winning a national championship that South Carolina does at 0.1.
Yeah, 6.6 wins.
There's a chance.
Projected for Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I think they go over that, honestly. They bring back a lot of talent from last year's team. They got really good as the season went on.
And if you're wondering, Akron,
the Zips,
is number 128 in the FPI.
They're rounding it out.
There are 134 schools in the FBS. You want to guess? Have you seen the bottom?
I just did.
Oh.
Like 5 seconds ago.
Okay. See?
Which, don't look, because there may or may not be some quizzing
Oh, okay.
with some of the teams that are there at the bottom.
And I mentioned it earlier too, but Clemson is number 15 in the FPI projected win total 8.5.
I think that's kind of where the neighborhood they're going to be in.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Clemson, if they don't change the roster construction attitudes over the next few years, 8-4 will be more of the norm than it used to be before the golden days.
Clemson, by the way,
Feel pretty good about that.
Is the second highest rated ACC school. Florida State is number 11, projected 8.8. That's the drive around the SEC, brought to you by Herndon Chevy. Stop by the showroom, see why Herndon makes you smile. And together, let's drive. All right, I'm being quizzed on the other side of the break. I'm very nervous. This is the Postgame Show. 11 minutes in front of 6 o'clock on this Thursday. Welcome back in. Final few minutes of the postgame show before I get quizzed and embarrass myself yet again with the way Elijah comes at me. I thought I knew a lot until I started working with Elijah Campbell.
Can't go over today.
I do want to remind everybody that I am a massive Dallas Mavericks super fan.
Lifelong. By lifelong, we mean like a week, too.
And they are 6.5-point underdogs tonight at the Garden. Who you got?
I got the Celtics in 6. And as a Laker fan, it pains me to say that, but I think they're probably the team best equipped defensively to be able to handle, I guess, how Dallas kills you with ball screens. So
Let's go, Luka.
that's what I'll be screaming on my futon tonight is go Luka. Go Mavs. I'm a Mavs fan now for at least a couple weeks.
Oh, no, you hit it right. I'm a Dallas Mavericks super fan.
Lifer.
Yep.
Got a Desana Jop jersey somewhere.
Yeah. So there we go. All right, that's I'm not doing well at these, man. So, but again, I'm here for the music. So
You are 0 for like your last 9. It's been tough. Tough sledding.
You rub it in.
These are all G5
okay.
and not as deep cut, but I will say the notable alums for these schools.
There's a lot of new G5 schools that I already gave you UTSA, man. That's about all I know.
Like Kennesaw State. Do you remember? You even had this one
Panthers?
last time. No, not even.
I don't remember.
We'll make you sit in the corner and think about what you just
I
did.
don't remember. I don't.
All right. Well, we'll start off with this one. Bowling Green State. It is also not in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
No, it's in Bowling Green, Ohio. Wildcats?
If a Wildcat could fly and maybe had some
Eagles.
talons. No, the Falcons. Yeah, different NFC team.
Right.
Bowling Green State. They are the Falcons. Famous alums. Oral Hershiser, Olympic gold medalist Scott Hamilton, Nate Thurmond, NBA Hall of Famer, and Mark Wells from the 1980 Miracle on Ice team.
Dang, man. That's pretty good list.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's really good. I didn't know Oral Hershiser was a Bowling Green State Falcon.
I wouldn't have known he played college baseball. I probably should have known that. But
They are the Fighting Oral Hershisers.
All right.
Number 2, Northern Illinois.
Huskies?
He got one.
Yes.
He got one. The streak is over at like 10. He finally got one. They are the Huskies. Notable alumni.
Knew that one.
Per Wikipedia, 0 names listed. None. Not a single one.
I knew that one.
Wikipedia has notable alums for every single college that has a Wikipedia page.
Wow.
And you go to the tab for Northern Illinois, and there's not a single name listed.
Yeah, I can see their logo, so I can, yeah.
So you got Huskies.
Okay.
Kent State.
I know this.
You should, because it was that last place team that you alluded to earlier in the FPI. This is a name you would have seen like
Are they like the
10
Flashes?
minutes. Not just the Flashes.
Golden Flashes.
That's right.
All right.
They are not just any Flashes, sir.
Yeah.
Because that is not FCC appropriate.
No, I know,
but
and
they
I
are
can
the
even give you
Golden
two of
Flashes.
their Lou Holtz and Nick Saban.
I did not see that there, but Nick Saban did go to Kent State.
Yeah.
So that would be correct.
Yeah, Lou Holtz went to Kent State.
But you know who else went to Kent State? Drew Carey,
Okay.
Arsenio Hall,
Wow.
Steve Harvey,
Oh.
Batman himself, Michael Keaton.
That's a hell of a list.
I know. Kent State has a good list of
Yeah.
notable alums here.
Yeah, and again, Coach Holtz. I'm like 95% certain Coach Holtz went to Kent State.
Maybe. There's so much in that TV section of notable alums that I kept it to TV.
While you ask me the next one, I'll type in Lou Holtz.
We're about to have a really good, interesting, speaking of notable alums, Texas State has a very good ensemble of notable alum.
Texas State. All right. Well, North Texas is like the mean green or something.
That's
so,
right. Not the nice green.
I'm not going to. I don't know what Texas State is.
Can't even guess.
I'll guess if you want me to guess.
It's a guessable one.
Bulldogs.
Think Charlotte. Basketball.
Oh, the Hornets. Okay.
No, not even.
The Bobcats.
The Bobcats. There you go. How could you forget Adam Morrison like that? No, Texas State, they are the Bobcats. Lyndon B. Johnson,
LBJ.
alum of Texas State. He's a group of 5 guy. Paul Goldschmidt, group of 5 guy.
Who Christian Walker took over for.
That's right. And most importantly, George Strait.
Oh, wow. Okay. Confirmed, Coach Holtz, Kent State.
Kent State, see? Kent State has a very deep ensemble
I thought so.
of notable alums.
That was a good roster. I love Michael Keaton. All right, we got time for one more?
All right, last not least, Old Dominion.
Monarchs.
Ah, there you go. Well done. See, with
I knew that one.
total confidence.
Yeah, I knew that one.
It was the Monarchs. Yeah. Notable alums, all sports related. Taylor Heineke, journeyman QB. Justin Verlander.
Oh.
Pretty good at baseball.
Yeah, pretty good.
Jay Harris from SportsCenter.
Justin Verlander, pretty good at baseball and spouses.
That's right. The all-spouse team. Kate Upton. He's the only guy on this list of all the notable alums that has a spouse that was on the cover of the Sports Illustrated Swimsuit edition. That's a stat.
That counts for something.
I don't think.
You know what? I feel pretty good.
I don't think Drew Carey could say the same.
I feel pretty good. That was again baseball.
You got
wise,
two.
That's a good batting average.
You get two.
Yeah. No, I got three. Sorta. I got the golden flashes, right?
That's true.
And we'll try it again tomorrow. AAA heating and air. It was hot today, y'all, and humid. Like I said a couple days ago, you know what's nice is when on these days when you walk into the house and you're like, it feels so good. And what's terrible is when it's that way outside and inside because your system is broken or it's old and unreliable. AAA Heating and Air is ready to help you out with that. Now, listen, if your system isn't, also old and it's just time for a quick repair, 803-677-1500. They'll stop by. They'll make it work real quick. Everything's good to go. But if you know it's time for something new, take advantage of what Roy and Dana Finley are offering you. 12 months, no payments or interest if you buy in 2024. Plus, a $1,500 system buyback rebate, and a 15-year parts and labor guarantee, and they can guarantee your financing. Make it affordable. Stay comfortable for years to come. Tell them we sent you, and stay nice and cool with AAA Heating and Air.